What if nature had your number? What if the sky itself decided you were its personal target? Most people fear a lightning strike. It's a primal fear. 300 million volts. Temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun. You see a flash. You count the seconds until the thunder. You just hope it stays far away. But for one man, it didn't stay away. It came for him. Again, again, again. 7 times. This isn't a myth or a campfire tall tale. This is the unbelievable but true story. A man who became a living conduit for nature's most destructive force. And somehow he lived to tell the tale every time. A masterclass in survival against impossible odds. Statistically, your chance of a strike in a lifetime, about 1 in 15,300. 7 strikes? Not 1 in a million, not 1 in a billion. 1 in 10 to the power of 28. A number with 28 zeros after it. A number so vast it's hard to imagine. More likely you'd win the lottery hundreds of times in a row. Yet for Roy Sullivan, this was his reality. A terrifying, painful, utterly bizarre dance with death for over 3 decades. Before he was known as the human lightning rod, Roy Cleveland Sullivan was just a regular American bloke. Born in 1912 in Greene County, Virginia. He was a rugged, outdoorsy man with a strong build and a face like the mountains he called home. He wasn't a scientist or a storm chaser, he was a U.S. park ranger, and his office was the great outdoors. Starting in 1936, he worked in Shenandoah National Park, part of the storm-prone Blue Ridge Mountains. His job was to protect the forest and its visitors, a duty he took seriously, never imagining he'd need protection from the forest's fury. He was described as tough and solid, but not someone who sought the spotlight. He was a husband and a father who enjoyed the simple things, fishing, hunting, and the quiet solitude of the wilderness. The kind of guy you'd trust to lead you out of the woods or build a sturdy campfire. The year was 1942. Roy Sullivan was a seasoned park ranger, but nothing could have prepared him for what was about to happen. He was stationed in a brand new fire lookout tower on Miller's Head. The tower was so new it didn't even have a lightning rod installed yet. A crucial detail. A vicious storm, which he later described as coming on suddenly, engulfed the mountain. Trapped in the small room at the top of the structure, Roy found himself in the worst possible place. Lightning began to strike the tower repeatedly. The small space filled with the smell of ozone, the terrifying crackle of electricity. He knew he had to get out. This wasn't a shelter, it was a trap. Feeling the tower shake with each successive strike, Roy made a break for it. He bolted from the lookout, deciding to take his chances in the open air, rather than stay inside the electrified structure. He only made it a few feet before the sky unleashed its fury directly upon him. A bolt of lightning found him tearing a half-inch strip down his right leg. He described the feeling as if something had ripped through him, an intense, searing pain that was over in an instant. The strike was so powerful it blew the big toenail clean off his right foot, his boot filled with blood, and he was left stunned, disoriented, but miraculously alive. For nearly 3 decades, Roy lived a lightning-free life. He continued his work, the memory of that first strike fading into a distant, traumatic echo. But in July 1969, the sky remembered him. Roy was driving his park truck along a winding mountain road in Shenandoah when a storm rolled in. He thought he was safe. He was inside a vehicle, one of the safest places during a thunderstorm due to the Faraday cage effect. A bolt struck 2 trees on one side of the road, then leaped to another tree on the other side and found a path right through the open windows of his truck. The bolt tore through the cab, striking Roy directly. The strike knocked him unconscious. It blew his eyebrows clean off. It blew his eyelashes clean off. His hair was set on fire. The truck careened out of control, narrowly missing the edge of a cliff before coming to a stop. Roy came to, dazed. The universe, it seemed, was not done with Roy Sullivan. The strikes began to come with alarming frequency. In the spring of 1972, strike number 4 occurred while he was working inside a ranger station on Loft Mountain. Once again he was indoors, supposedly safe. A storm was raging outside. He heard a loud crackle and suddenly the building was on fire. He later said he heard a sizzling sound right behind his head. The lightning had struck the building, traveled through the wiring, and set his hair on fire. He rushed to the restroom to douse his smoldering head with wet towels. This was the second time a lightning strike had set his hair ablaze. From that point on, he started carrying a can of water with him everywhere he went. This incident deepened his growing paranoia. He began to believe that some force, perhaps God or some other supernatural power, was actively trying to destroy him. He started to avoid crowds and would pull his truck over and lie down on the front seat if he was caught in a storm while driving. Strike number 5 came just over a year later, on August 7, 1973. Roy was on patrol in his truck again, trying to escape a storm cloud that he swore was following him. He finally thought he had outrun it and pulled over to have a look. It was a fatal mistake. He got out of his truck and a bolt of lightning shot down, hitting him on the left side of his head. It traveled down his left arm and leg, knocking his shoe off. By 1977, Roy Sullivan was a man living on the edge. He had retired from the Park Service, perhaps hoping that a change in location and lifestyle would finally break the curse. He and his wife moved to a new home, in a town fittingly named Dooms, Virginia. He tried to make his new home a fortress against the storms, installing lightning rods on the house, installing lightning rods on nearby trees. He spent most of his time indoors, nursing a deep-seated fear that had become his constant companion. But on the morning of June 25, 1977, nature proved that there was no place he could hide. He wasn't on a mountain or in his truck. He was simply enjoying a quiet morning of fishing. He was out on a freshwater pond, sitting in his small boat when the familiar dark clouds began to gather. He started to reel in his line, knowing he needed to get to shore immediately. But it was too late. A bolt of lightning slammed into the top of his head, the seventh and final strike. He was confronted by a black bear that was trying to steal the trout from his fishing line, had to summon the strength to fight off a bear. So, how did one man survive 7 separate lightning strikes? The science behind it is a mix of incredible luck, human biology, the bizarre physics of a lightning discharge. A direct lightning strike is often fatal because the massive electrical current stops the heart and lungs and can literally cook the internal organs. However, lightning doesn't always travel through the body. Sometimes it flashes over the surface of the skin, a flashover. This is more likely if the skin is wet, rain sweat. The electricity takes the path of least resistance, and moisture on the skin can keep most of the current outside the body. In several of Roy's strikes, that flashover likely saved his life. His rugged condition as a park ranger may have helped. A healthy cardiovascular system is more resilient and might restart after being disrupted by a massive jolt. Still, surviving 7 times is a statistical anomaly science struggles to explain. It's where luck and probability defy understanding. Experts who studied Roy were baffled. Donald M. McGorman, physicist at the National Severe Storms Laboratory, once commented on the improbability. He was, effectively, a living statistical impossibility. Roy Sullivan's life was irrevocably shaped by the lightning. He earned the nickname Human Lightning Rod and Spark Ranger, titles that brought him strange and unwanted celebrity. While the Guinness World Record brought him a degree of fame, it was a fame born of pain and fear. His wife was struck by lightning while hanging clothes in their backyard with Roy. She survived. It deepened the family's bizarre saga, fueling Roy's belief he was dangerous to those he loved. He became increasingly isolated. He feared the storms, and he feared for the safety of anyone near him. The emotional toll was immense. He spoke of being shunned by others. People would see me and they'd say, "I'm going the other way." When he'd walk into a store during a storm, people would hurry out. This social rejection compounded his trauma. He loved the outdoors and he loved the company of others, yet he was forced into a life of solitude. He was marked by physical scars and by the invisible wounds of loneliness and fear, a constant watch for the next flash of light from a sky that seemed to hold a personal grudge. Roy Sullivan survived 7 lightning strikes, a bear attack. But he could not outrun the storm within his own mind. The years of trauma. The constant fear, the profound loneliness took a heavy toll that no amount of physical resilience could overcome. He had faced down the fury of the heavens time and again. Yet he was fighting a different kind of battle. One against depression and despair. On the morning of September 28, 1983. At the age of 71, Roy Sullivan died by his own hand. The official cause of death was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. A tragic and somber end for a man defined by improbable survival. His death adds a poignant and heartbreaking final chapter. He could withstand hundreds of millions of volts of electricity, but not the crushing weight of his own suffering. Some reports said he was heartbroken over an unrequited love, but you can't separate that from decades of psychological trauma. He lived a life no one else has ever lived, and carried a burden no one else can truly understand. Stay safe out there.